So we're talking about the presidents and black civil rights, and we've talked about Rutherford B. Hayes, who brought an end to Reconstruction, and we probably should talk about Andrew Johnson, who ties with the most useless president this country has ever had. Can you guess who he ties with? Let's move on. I loathe this man. I loathe this man. The trajectory of this country and race relations changed when this man became president. He is our 17th president, following the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. The only reason he became president is because Lincoln chose him as his running mate for his second run as president as a token of peace to the South. You see, Andrew Johnson is a Tennessee boy. In fact, Johnson remained in the Senate even when Tennessee seceded from the Union, and Johnson had to smuggle himself out of the state to stay alive. Johnson claimed to be for black civil rights, but changed his tune when Lincoln was assassinated and Johnson became president. His racism started to show very quickly. Johnson routinely called blacks inferior. He stated that no matter how much progress they made, they must remain inferior. Before the American Civil War, he argued that the federal government had no authority to prohibit slavery in the U.S. and that black people were better off as slaves. In a January 31st, 1844 speech, Johnson said, "The black race of Africa is inferior to the white man in point of intellect, better calculated in physical structure to undergo drudgery and hardship, standing, as they do, many degrees lower in the scale of gradation that expresses the relative relation between God and all that he has created than the white man." In a July 24th, 1857 speech, he told the crowd, "The Negro here in the state of slavery is in a far better condition than the native African at home. The Negro is an inferior type of man and incapable of advancement in his native country." Throughout his career, Johnson believed that white people should have total control of the U.S. government. In a speech, Johnson warned that giving black people the right to vote would place every splay-footed, bandy-shanked, hump-backed, thick-lipped, flat-nosed, woolly-headed, ebon-colored Negro in the country upon an equality with the poor white man. Needless to say, he vetoed the 15th Amendment. And you know he opposed the 14th Amendment, right? The one that gave equal rights to black people. He actually went on a tour talking trash about the 14th Amendment and said that the 14th Amendment discriminated against white people. Those were his exact words. Johnson was one of the last U.S. presidents to personally own slaves. He owned between 8 and 10 slaves, so less than Madison, yeah. He freed them in 1863, August 1863, between the Emancipation Proclamation, which was January 1863, and Tennessee's mass emancipation, which was October 1864. Keep in mind, fearing that emancipation by federal edict would alienate Tennessee's slave-holding Unionists, Johnson urged that the state be exempted from the Emancipation Proclamation so he could promote the issue from the inside. He met with Frederick Douglass and other black leaders about the prospects for black male suffrage. And Andrew Johnson's counter argument to black empowerment was a feigned victimhood. He told the group of formerly enslaved black men, he says, I might say, however, that practically, so far as my connection with slaves has gone, I have been their slave instead of their being mine. Yes, he formed his pasty lips to say those words to black men who had been sold away from their families, sold on auction blocks, whipped, assaulted, worked to death from sunup to sundown with barely enough food to eat. That I have been their slave instead of their being mine. How very all lives matter of him. Did I tell you the one about when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated? Andrew Johnson implemented his own form of Reconstruction. It was similar to Lincoln's with a twist. It was a series of proclamations directing the seceded states to hold conventions and elections to reform their civil governments and forgiving most of the Confederate soldiers, which was a huge mistake. Southern states returned many of their old leaders and passed black codes to deprive the freedmen of many civil liberties, and Johnson vetoed all federal laws intended to protect formerly enslaved people from racial terror and from the black codes passed in the old Confederate states. This reduced black people to a state of semi-servitude. Johnson believed and shared the racist myth that Southern whites were victimized by black emancipation, civil rights, and citizenship, which became the basis of the lost cause theory, which said that slavery was good, enslaved people were happy, and enslavers were kind. I leave you with two quotes. The first one from W.E.B. Du Bois in, I think it was it 1935? He included in an essay called Transubstantiation of a Poor White in his book Black Reconstruction in America. The topic was Johnson's presidential reconstruction, about which Du Bois wrote, Andrew Johnson could not include Negroes in any conceivable democracy. He tried to, but as a poor white, steeped in the limitations, prejudices, and ambitions of his social class, he could not. And this is the key to his career. For the future of the Negroes, he had nothing except the bare possibility that, if given freedom, they might continue to exist and not die out. And from historian Robert S. Levine, Johnson worked to undermine the Freedmen's Bureau, to dismantle other Reconstruction initiatives, and to prevent African Americans from attaining equal rights through federal legislation. The betrayal, which contributed to the failure of Reconstruction and another 100 years of racial oppression, continues to be a central focus of historians, but was recognized and criticized in his own time. Johnson's turn from staunch Unionist to Confederate apologist and his centrality to the detriment of the goals of Reconstruction was also gratefully lauded by his fellow white supremacists of the Legacy South. There is so much more. This is just the highlights because we barely scratched the surface. So we might do a part 2 because this man was a truly horrible man who did nothing but try to hobble the goals of Reconstruction and send the status of the black man hurtling all the way back to slavery. It was a bait and switch. There are many reasons why Reconstruction failed, but he is one of the main reasons why Reconstruction failed.